Um, Thinking ahead of today about what would be most interesting for this audience, it struck me most of you likely wear two hats. One as an organizational leader with your own board, the other as an individual with value to contribute as a board member for external organizations. So I've divided my observations on trends into two to reflect those two slightly different perspectives. Probably important to caveat with, especially with the academics on the call, that the trends I've picked out are based on what we see through the New Role platform rather than an academic analysis of the market. But with over 1,000 board roles going through the New Role platform the last couple of years across all sectors, size and types of organizations, from startups to multinationals and everything in between, including non-profits and governments, which I think makes us the largest player in the space by some distance. We're probably a good bellwether for what's happening in the broader market, despite being the disruptor. So if I start with the organization perspective trends, the first one I pick out is around a pause. There's been a pause in board hiring, but it's very much a sense of deferral rather than cancellation. Seasoned chairs are generally sanguine, seeing through the storm, but right now very much focused on survival. Boards are asking directors to defer rotation off to navigate through the crisis with an experienced set of hands. Interestingly, it's been the growth and VC investors who've been most cautious. PLCs remain under regulatory constraints, so continuing to hire, albeit more cost sensitively. Non-profits are more in need than ever, and government really varies by department. It does actually, interestingly, make it a good time to be hiring for those organizations adopting that mantra of be greedy when others are fearful, because we're seeing more overhires with the supply of roles reduced. Second trend I pick out on the organization side is this continued pressure to recruit inclusively, but organizations are facing ongoing challenges navigating it. So non-profits and government have been leaders on this, but they struggle to access the talent through their own channels. PLC boards have had gender diversity as a key focus for a while, but until recently, there's only really been lip service to the ethnicity. But there's a real sense that that is changing with Black Lives Matter recently. PEVC, the private sector, it's still mainly lip service. And I think until LPs put their foot down as they did in public markets, I can't see that changing. There's an ongoing challenge that even when boards take the active step to recruit for diversity, then having to navigate a legal tightrope, and then lacking the know-how on how to assess candidates who are different and struggle to deal with that knee-jerk, but they're not like me reaction. The data we have suggests there is bias at work. Third trend, there are several key skills which are in particular demand. So digital, fundraising and finance and marketing. On digital especially, organizations are digging deeper and wider to find fresh talent. We just had a FTSE 100 use the platform to recruit a board member 3 levels below, C-suite for a digital thinker. We're also seeing, interestingly, a rising number of younger candidates enjoying success as boards, so people in their 30s, who offer a perspective that the boards don't have with an average age of 60, which is a problem when a substantial portion of their employees, customers, suppliers, and stakeholders are millennials who rent and don't buy, amongst other things. There's a growing, fourth trend, growing comfort with remote hiring. Indeed, a growing sense of the benefits. Interviewers and interviewees are preparing better. They're being more economic with their time, and boards are becoming more data-driven in their assessments. We're seeing more psychometrics and other tests. It's an area we're definitely spending a lot of time focusing on. And the final trend on the organization side is the rise of what we call the board advisory, pop-up board and subcommittees. We're seeing a growing awareness of the benefits of board roles as a low-cost way to access talent without having to implement formal structures and responsibilities of the board. This actually started in the pro bono space, where charities would appoint one person to the board, but rather than discard 5 or 6 other high-quality candidates who had volunteered to work pro bono and demonstrate a passion for their cause, they're finding ways to make use of that talent. And then very quickly, perspectives, trends from the candidate perspective, we're seeing more first-time NEDs as the trend towards the gig economy and flexible working grows. We're seeing a continued imbalance of supply versus demand driving competition for seats, raising the bar and professionalizing the role. We sometimes hear from people who say they had more luck getting roles through their own network, and when you look at their profile, you understand why, and you tell them keep going for as long as you can, because once those boards start running proper processes, you're just not going to get the roles. We're seeing a growing demand for purpose-driven roles, so people shifting from commercial to non-profit and social impact organizations as part of second and third careers. We're seeing a growing understanding of the learning and development benefits a board role can have for an executive. So actually we're seeing more and more boards approaching us, organizations asking us to help them get their next gen talent a board seat because of what they're learning from that and taking proactive steps. And then finally, we continue to see that on average, women and people of color continue to undersell themselves, while on average, men continue to believe they can do everything and struggle to believe there could be anyone better than them. There is a clear trend at work, which means if you are from an underrepresented group, it's a good time to be going for board roles. If you're not, it's only getting tougher.